Okay, great. So, Deborah, thanks so much for joining us. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us or having us. Thanks so much for having me here. It's great to see you guys. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to come. What I'm going to share with you is an actionable way to start using LinkedIn. My name is Deborah Ager. I'll talk more about myself in a minute. So what I want to start off with is you guys and with LinkedIn. So let me just go get my, let me just go share my screen here. All right, here we go. All right, so hopefully everyone can see this. Just give a shout out if not, and then Julia can let me know. And I do invite you guys as a first action. One of the things that's really useful with LinkedIn is to have more connections, within the realm of what you do. It doesn't have to be exactly what you do, but having more connections means more people see your content. So I invite you to connect with each other and to share your links in the comments and also to connect with me. So it'd be great to be connected to more folks in this area. So if you're looking to do any of these things, you're in the right place. We'll be covering these kinds of things. You want to have more impact, or you see others creating on LinkedIn. Also, if you like to have fun, like sometimes we don't really think about marketing and business growth as being fun. Sometimes people are like, it's kind of a drag, or it's a worry or whatever, but it actually can be really fun to use LinkedIn, which I think is a nice thing about it. So whether you have beginner's mind or you're just starting out, that's just something that's good to know about it. And I've taught LinkedIn content writing for quite some time. I don't teach it currently, but everything shared today comes from successes that either I've had or my students have had. So I'm going to share some anecdotes and stories with you just to let you see the kinds of things that can happen because of LinkedIn. And then you guys can make a decision as to whether it makes sense for your business or not to use it. So kind of as I encourage you in the beginning to share your LinkedIn profile link, I also encourage you just to write down something you can do with LinkedIn in the next few days. Like it could be something as simple as like put up a more clear profile photo, or perhaps a banner, or perhaps change your headline. Just pick something out of what I talk about, and I encourage you to make that change in the next 7 days, just so you actually really get something from this presentation in your time here. So we're going to talk about anti-boring content and how to start getting more opportunities with it on LinkedIn. And if you have questions throughout, I invite you guys to put them in the chat. If I don't see it, hopefully Julia will just be like, Deborah, question, and I can answer it. I can either answer them at the end or as I go through. Either way is fine with me. So LinkedIn content is my #1 way of growing my business, and it has been for quite some time. I remember feeling kind of shocked when I went from, I've made sales of like $25,000 on there. I've made sales of $8,000, $5,000, and even $100 on there. So really it can be anything. And a lot of people wonder, well, is it right for my business? Because I have a local business, or I have a national business, or I do B2C, or I do B2B. It's actually really good for any of those. I know someone who sells cufflinks on LinkedIn. She's in the UK. And so that's you wouldn't think of selling products on LinkedIn, but people do. I've even seen a painter who sells a lot of her paintings on LinkedIn. And why am I mentioning those examples? Because they're a little bit more of the offbeat uses of LinkedIn. And I just wanted to make the point that you can, with the right strategy, you can make sales and you can open up opportunities for yourself. So a little bit about me. I worked for the Red Cross, where I generated $104 million in revenue during my time there. And around that same time, I was running an international literary magazine on the side, which is carried in libraries at Harvard, Yale, and so on. And I was also teaching creative writing at Johns Hopkins. So that was a very busy time in my life. So then, being really smart, I jumped into a different job that was 12 hours a day. And I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I started my own business, which probably all of us can chuckle because it's like 12-hour days, tell me about it, right? But anyway, at least I had a more flexible schedule. So I had more time to spend with my dad, who was on the decline at that point. And at some point, an advertising agency owner reached out to me and said, help me write my book. And I was like, that's not what I do, because I was working as a marketing consultant. But then I was like, you know what, this could be really cool. Like, he knew I had the digital marketing experience. He knew I could write. We got along well. So we worked on it. And then after that, I just worked on more books, some of which you can see here. And I began working with sales and marketing professionals. I attracted a number of professional musicians, like this one in the middle is by a professor at the Berklee School of Music. And so it was just really fun to work on these variety of books. And books and social media content have a little bit more in common than people might think. So to me, I'm just like content is content, but sometimes people see it as separate. I kind of see it as the same thing. But anyway, marketing for $1 billion organization like the Red Cross was way different than doing it for my business. And despite having a lot of marketing experience, I was kind of flailing about like, how do I get clients on my own? And I was going to in-person networking events, and it just like was like a slow road. And I found out that LinkedIn was the answer, and that my marketing and copywriting background gave me an advantage, and that other people needed to know how to do this. So I was like, oh, other people need to know how to do this, and I can do it. So as I had more success, obviously I didn't start teaching it before I knew what I was doing, but once I figured out what I was doing, I began to have success, and it was repeatable success. I began to teach it in a program that I created. So I began teaching business owners how to do that. And it was really cool. I had this content writing challenge, and several hundred people would join me each time. And it was really cool because even in that those 5 days of free classes, people would start to have positive experiences. Like 2 of these, the one that's highlighted orange is someone who just worked with me for free for 5 days. I was like, whoa. And then the one on the right, this Valerie Martinelli, who's a fantastic career coach, she booked 2 new clients, and she charges $5,000 a client. So she's just like, I just made $10,000. So it was really gratifying to be able to help people in this way, to be able to see how to use LinkedIn to be able to build their business. And sometimes people have posted content before, and they're like, well, no one liked it. I didn't get any engagement. It doesn't really matter. Like if you go look at mine, you'll be like, it's not very impressive. She doesn't have a million likes or comments. It doesn't really matter because people still see it. That's the important thing. I've had people reach out to me to hire me, and they have never seen a thing, or sorry, they've never commented or liked anything. And they're like, yeah, I'm ready to work with you. I'm like, wait, what? I never saw your name pop up. But it just happens frequently. It's because people are watching, even if they aren't engaging. And I have a feeling this is a little more true if you work directly with corporations. Sometimes the people inside corporations are not going to comment because they're worried about, will I keep my job? What if I say the wrong thing? So I know a number of people who, let's say they sell to HR managers or, to people, corporate trainings, that they frequently mention that that's the case. So an acronym that you can use to remember what to do with your content is OATS. I like my oatmeal every day. So it's like, have your oats every day. The idea of the content is that it originates from the personable, that we're not just like, buy my thing, and we're not sounding like robots, but we're actually bringing ourselves into it. One of my students wrote about buying his wife. He bought her a letter. I think he wrote the letter, but then he paid to have it sent from Paris. It was a love letter, and he had it sent to her. They both live in London. But anyway, he wrote a post about that, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, it was so sweet. And he had a picture of the letter. And so these kinds of things can be shared if you feel like it's applicable, if you want to be seen as more personable. I know someone else who runs a big agency, and he'll share posts about like teaching his kids about business and saving money. And so it's like the stories sort of relate to what he does a little bit, but they're not 100% all about business. And I think that's one of the fun things you can do with LinkedIn, is that you're allowed to be a little bit personable. Now, personable and personal are different. It's not a place to generally oversharing, or what would be considered oversharing isn't really, it's just like real life. People are kind of like, whoa, if it's too much info. But being able to share like chosen and selected elements of your life can be really nice as a way to get to know people. And then it appeals to your reader, and it also takes them somewhere. So really good content will help people sort of be like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, or, oh, that's inspiring, or that's just what I needed to hear today. Now, do we all do that every day? No, we all have our dud days. I certainly do, where I'm just like, oh yeah, that content didn't really do what I wanted to, because I'm not perfect. And that's fine, because when you try more, you have more chances of success. So that's what we're kind of aiming for here. And the other thing is it satisfies your reader in some way. So by taking them somewhere and sort of helping them see something in a new way, it's very satisfying to the reader to have that experience. Now, another thing, you can start small and still be profitable. Some clients of mine and students of mine began making sales right away. Some of them had to overcome some mindset stuff and self-doubt, so it took them longer. I did find when people didn't know what they were selling, it took them the longest. So then I sort of shifted to working with people who are a little bit more seasoned in business and weren't just starting a business. So if you're just starting and you don't quite know what you're doing, it might not be the best time to create content. It's a little bit better when you're focused on your message and you know exactly what it is that you're selling. And this is just a story about Valerie, and so we already talked about that. The bottom line to LinkedIn, and please do feel free to ask questions. I see there's some, let's see what's in the chat. Okay, great. I'm glad you guys shared your LinkedIn profiles. Awesome. Clear communication and focus helps you sell. So if you have a certain service, not talking about 5 different things every day, or if you did talk about 5 different things you did every day and all the different ways you can help people, it becomes very confusing to them because they're like, well, I don't know, or I saw a different message last time. So that consistency of message and then being really using clear language around it is extremely important on LinkedIn. Like I just shifted a little bit of what I was doing, and someone who pays attention is like, oh, I noticed that you changed things. So people do notice, and they are out there kind of watching. This is another example from an executive coach in, I think she lives in Dublin or somewhere nearby. She was a student of mine, and she was telling me, she's like, I haven't had a chance to come to the live sessions because I took your materials and I just ran with it, and I've been writing, and clients are rolling in, and I'm so busy with the clients now that I got from using your methods that she didn't have time to come to class. So I just thought that that was kind of a funny story that I was very happy to see. The other thing that's really cool about LinkedIn, a lot of people don't talk about this, is that let's say you have a new product or service offering and you sort of want to test it out. It's a really cool way to be able to test out ideas. Like for instance, I'm looking to rename my monthly event. I have this free monthly event that is currently called the Storytelling Roundtable, but I'm considering other names. So I put up a poll on LinkedIn and just asked people to weigh in on some different choices I had. So this kind of gave me, and then people added additional ideas and gave me even more ideas. And then like one idea I had, someone said, oh, it sounds like an Adobe product. I wouldn't have thought about that. So it was really good to get the feedback. It gave everyone a chance to participate. And the post got a lot of views and did really well. So thinking through like how you might engage people in what you're looking to do, or be like, oh, I'm thinking about offering this service. What do you guys think? Sometimes those kinds of questions and posts can do really well. And you can test things out before you spend like a whole ton of money getting everything set up. Louise was in a past program I had, and she said that someone had called her and said, hey, it's so-and-so from LinkedIn. And she was really confused because she's like, why is LinkedIn calling me? And then she realized the person had seen her on LinkedIn and they were connected on LinkedIn and they were reaching out to her about working together. She was like, that is so cool. So that's a fun thing to do. Some of the questions that you can ask as you're trying to decide, like if you're not sure if LinkedIn is for you, it's just to think through like, how many sales, this is just like a tiny bit of business strategy, but how many sales do I need to reach my financial goal, either for the month, however you do it, the week, the month, the quarter, and then how will I continue the conversation afterwards? I remember when I first got on LinkedIn and started to use it, I was like, oh, it can be as simple as like a post to a message to a phone call. It didn't have to be complicated. It didn't have to involve like a welcome email nurture sequence and lots of complicated technology. It's just like, let's have a conversation and we'll see, if we're a good fit, or if one of us can help the other. And also think about what is your conversion rate. So, if you need to have 10 conversations to make 1 sale versus you need to have 4 conversations to make 1 sale, that'll be very different. So those are things to take into consideration when it comes to your calculations to see how much content to post, how frequently. But if you're in doubt, I generally say try to work up to 5 days a week. That seems like a lot for people, but I would try to work up to 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and then kind of go from there and see how things are going. And then also thinking through the primary item you want to sell. Is it your consulting? Is it a course you have about what you do? Is it some kind of workshop that you're offering? Just thinking about what's the primary item that you want to sell first. That can help you really organize your content around that topic, so you can kind of just be leading people to that. And do you have proof of concept? That's number 5. Have you sold it before? If it's new, it'll take longer to get traction. If it's something that works and you have at least sold it somewhere before, even if it was through a referral or some other method, at least you have proof of concept. So just know that anything with proof of concept will usually take a little less time to start working on LinkedIn than if it's something that's like completely new that you've never done before. I've just had students in the past who are like, it's not working. I'm a bad business owner, but I'm like, but you just started. You just started your business. You don't have proof of concept yet. So anyway, be kind to yourself and just keep those things into consideration. And there's a lot of people on LinkedIn who are like, yes, I'm driving my Maserati. Yes, everything's perfect, and I don't know if you've ever heard of, I don't know, people will have pictures of themselves next to airplanes they've rented. I mean, it can get silly on the internet sometimes with certain folks. So don't assume anyone has it all together unless you know for sure. So if you see someone else on LinkedIn and they have a bazillion comments, they just might belong to one of these groups where people give each other bazillions of comments. I wouldn't worry about that. And as much as possible, don't compare yourself to other people because you just don't know what's going on in the background. So these are just some facts about me and a few comments where people, some people reached out to me. This top one is a student of mine talking about how he got an inbound email from someone who wanted to work with him, which I think is great because inbound marketing that come with leads who come to you is so much nicer than like us having to chase people. So I have over 20,000 connections, which I've built up over time. My engagement still varies. Like I said before, I experiment with different things. I use video, I use polls, I use stories. I do a little bit of everything because then I figure someone's going to find something in there that they like. And also because you never quite know what the algorithm likes. So it's better to do a little bit of everything. And then my community, my community appreciates the content that I'm putting out there. And that's a good thing to be doing. These are just some of the opportunities that I've gotten. So some of these are through my book. I edited a Jewish poetry anthology. So some of these on the bottom are through my book, but we use social media, LinkedIn and otherwise to talk about the book. So I feel like it contributed to these things. And then these are just a few of the shows that I've had. I frequently have podcast hosts reach out to me because sometimes they'll see my videos. And so they have been able to see me present. And they're like, oh, okay, I'd like you to talk about that same topic on my podcast. And it just makes it very easy for people to reach out to you. And you don't have to pitch podcasts. Instead, they come to you, which is just sort of a nice thing. You don't have to bother with pitch letters and so on. So how do you grow your business from anti-boring content? The first thing is to clarify. I have a clarify, storify, amplify process that I use whether I'm helping people create books or content. The first one is to clarify these different areas. Probably a lot of you have that already, like in the, one of you does sustainable gardening, Adriana. So it's like, who do you serve? It might be people in the DC area. It might be certain neighborhoods. What is it that you sell? It could be, maybe she teaches them. Maybe she does it for them, something like that. Maybe she sells designs. Like there's so many different ways you can do this. And then what is it that sets you apart? Sorry, I hope you don't mind me using you as a bit of an example, Adriana, it just stuck in my mind. But I'd say like, I've been looking for landscapers and gardening people, so it's on my mind, but some are sustainable, some do rain gardens. I'm also looking for someone to repair cement. And I love this example. He's like, I can't help you because the only thing I do is I prop up sunken cement. That's what I do. I was like, okay, anyone who worries about their business not working because it's too focused needs to go look at the sunken cement guy. And this is how he's running his whole business. He only deals with sunken cement and he specializes in getting it up to ground level. I was like, wow. Anyway, great. So just think about why it is you're different. What is it you do that other people don't? And then get LinkedIn ready. Be sure your profile and your content is set to public. I coach in someone's program sometimes on LinkedIn, and a lot of times people will say, I'm getting 0 engagement. It's like, well, do you have your content sent to public and your profile? And they're like, oh no, okay, we'll set it to public so people can see it. Also feature your content. I'll show you where you can do that in a minute. I have a screenshot coming up that will show you exactly what to do. And then also use stories. I love using success stories of how I worked with people. I like to create videos with my clients. I put them into mashup videos and they're very effective whether I use them on my website or on LinkedIn because people can see for themselves what my clients say about the process. It's not an easy process. It does take time. They can talk about how they enjoy working with me. People can really get a sense of things behind the scenes. So you can do that in text or in video. It works really well. All right, so here's a screenshot of my profile, and I just wanted to show you a few things. One, your banner can have a call to action. So at the time that I took the screenshot, I was offering these free stories that grab classes. And I try to have a call to action here most of the time. All right, and then here's the, yeah.
Deborah, a question, and this may be another whole class, but I had someone help me put a banner up. My banner has been up for 2 years.
Oh.
And I cannot figure out how to get it down, meaning I can't figure out how to, I can go in it, I can click on the little pencil, right? But in terms of it, but I know it's not that easy. I know it's not just picking up and plopping stuff in there. Is there a specific tool that I should be using? And if not, no worries, I will follow up with you later.
Yeah, you can, to create, do you want to replace it with another banner?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so to create a banner, I would use Canva.
Okay.
Put it in, if you guys aren't familiar with that, I just put it in the chat. And then if there's time at the end, I can just show you where to go to be able to switch out your banner.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. And there's a certain size for it. And I think Canva will have a banner pre-created for LinkedIn, or they might have some other pre-created size that you can just use.
Okay, and I have Canva, so I have it. I just,
yeah.
No, okay, thanks.
Yeah, they have these templates in Canva that make things really easy. So you can like find Facebook banners and whatnot. I just don't know if they have one for LinkedIn. Okay, so then when you scroll down on your profile, you'll see these featured areas, and you can use these in lots of different ways. I currently have some video testimonials from clients, so people can see that. At the time I was running these 5-day content writing sprints, so I had that up where people could see it right away. In the center here, I had a piece of content that seemed to have, gotten people's attention. So I thought, well, I'll just include that. I had that there for a while. And then on the left, I have a swoon-worthy about page guide. So you can see where using the images helps it stand out a little bit more than just the one that's all text. Video helps it stand out. So this is just basically where you can put any media that will help people. Like maybe you have a free guide. It could be 5 things to know about DEI. It could be, 5 plants that are especially good for zone 7 sustainable gardening. Like it could just be anything that you want to have there that like is going to help people understand what you do and will help them with some of what you do as well. So those are just some different ideas for what you can do. So basically LinkedIn is like a cocktail party. So if you ever feel like, I don't know what to do, just remember, what would you do at a barbecue or a cocktail party? Even though we're still all probably getting used to going to parties again. I know I still am. I'm like, what, humans? Are we supposed to talk in real life? So basically I say that because I just want people to make that connection that it is like a party. You ask questions, you tell stories, and that can really help. And I'm just sharing some examples of like, you can see the different views from different questions and kinds of content that I received. Now, some of these views, like they don't really get that high anymore because LinkedIn has changed some things, and you should never be impressed by these numbers anyway. Even 30,000 views, I wouldn't be impressed by that, but it's just to give you a sense of like, this is what can happen and how many people can see it. Now, if it's like, if 6,000 people see it or 3,000, that's a high number these days. So, things are changing on LinkedIn all the time. All right, let me go on here. The other thing is to comment and also listen. So I think that commenting is not talked about enough, and that it's really important to be engaging with your community. So I comment on the posts of people sometimes randomly. Sometimes something just piques my interest and I comment. Sometimes I'm commenting because I think maybe the person could be a collaborator or maybe a client, or maybe I'm interested in hiring them for something. So I choose like an assortment of people, and I comment on a wide range of different kinds of content. I try to do like 10 to 20 a day to stay in touch with people. And that might sound like a lot, but you don't have to write a book every time. I would write more than just like, thanks for sharing. There's a lot of people who are like, nice, thanks for sharing. Very cool. Like I have done that sometimes if I'm really want to support the person and I don't understand what they're talking about, like it's on artificial intelligence or something that I don't know a lot about. But I do try to find something or ask a question. Sometimes I'll be like, what is it about, XYZ that's important or that I should know, or, something like that, something that I'm genuinely curious about. So those are just some ideas for you guys to think about. And so basically for people to remember it, I like to talk about the 3 C's. So there's create content, and then comment, And now I'm totally blanking on what the third C was. But anyway, I know I mentioned it, so I'll come back to it later. And then if you want a faster path, I offer a LinkedIn incubator session that kind of helps people in 45 to 60 minutes figure out what they're doing on LinkedIn. It's like a fast track way of getting some help. So that's something that's possible if that interests you, but obviously no pressure or anything like that. So some things that make LinkedIn content work so well is that people are usually more ready to buy from you after they know a little bit more about what you do. They know who you help, they know it's for them. They know they can, it's within their budget. What else do they need to know? They need to know that you can do the work, that you have the experience. So if you're covering all the different content areas that I shared, like you're sharing those success stories, you're doing maybe a little bit of video here and there so people can hear you talk and so on, you're going to be answering these questions even before they get on the phone with you or before they reach out, and they're going to be a little bit further down the line. And that saves you time. It also helps you get more qualified leads coming your way, which just basically saves you time. It makes the whole sales conversation much more pleasant. And you guys everyone can have a conversation like that at like a higher level rather than like trying to explain what you do in the first place or why it's needed. They'll already know that because they'll be really educated. And then just again, it can work from anything from like $100 to $100,000. There's really no limit on what can happen. It just, who do you target? Some people, if you target big corporations, you're going to sell larger things to them. Any questions or anything before I continue on? Yeah.
Sorry, wasn't sure if you were saying to me. I have a couple of questions if I can.
Yes, please.
The first question is, I understand the difference between connections and followers, but do you have a recommendation about what your default is? And can you talk a little bit more about how those logistics work for you?
Yeah, so if you follow someone, you'll see their content, but they won't necessarily see yours unless they comment on it and then it happens to show up in their feed. If you're a follower, I think you also, depending upon what level you have, you might not be able to message them, which I don't think is too terribly important. I don't usually message many people on LinkedIn. And I think those are like the main differences. The other thing is that you're limited to, what's the number now? The limit used to be 30,000 connections, but you're not limited to followers. You can have 1 million followers, but you can only have 30,000 connections. And when you're a connection, it means I can see your content, you can see my content, we can message each other. So that's the difference.
Yeah, sorry. So I understand that, but what I'm wondering
okay.
is do you have a recommendation about, like, do you set your default to followers? Do you set your default to connections? Is there an advantage to having more of one than the other in terms of building a community?
I think there's an advantage in followers in that there's an opportunity for more people to see your content. That was the C I left out. I frequently connect with people, 5 to 12 people most days. And I don't really see that there's an advantage as long as you have some of each. Like if you had if you had 0 connections and all followers, maybe that would be an issue. But I think as long as you're kind of making connections on a regular basis, some people will choose just to follow you. And I don't really think there's a huge difference, except that as you get more connections and you run out one day, because maybe you've reached 30,000, you can continue to accept more followers. And so that's the benefit of followers, is that they can still access your content, even though you can no longer accept them as a connection. So,
cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And the other question I had is, when we comment, I worry sometimes, like what I tend to do is say something like, as a coach, I've also discovered this. So I'm kind of a little bit about me, but mostly about the other person, because I don't want to look like I'm stealing their thunder. But do you have a recommendation in terms of how you said, don't just say cool, but can you bring yourself into the conversation, or does that look so silly?
Let me go back and show you guys this. I'm going to show you my headline really quick. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, well, anyway, you have the headline on LinkedIn and it follows you around on LinkedIn. So when you leave a comment, you'll notice that about the first 5 words of your headline are going to show up. So I invite you guys to take a look at your first 5 words and see, is it clearly telling people what it is you do? So I recommend starting with a word like mentoring, coaching, helping, facilitating, whatever it is you do, because that puts the focus on your audience. So use one of those words or another one like it, and then say who you help. So at the time I had this headline, it was helping coaches increase sales through LinkedIn content. That means that people see like the first 4 to 5 words. They're like, oh, help coaches increase sales. How does she do that? They can click on my profile or scroll over in the comment section and learn more. And I do get a fair number of connection requests from people who've seen my comments. And that's yet another reason to do it, is that we're expanding our networks and letting more people see what we do. So I hope that
Great.
helps.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And also, like, you can use the search tools to find people in certain areas. So let's say that there's certain areas where people are more likely to hire you, whether it's local or whether it's somewhere else. So I figured when I was doing, when I do more book coaching, there's certain parts of the US where probably people will be more likely to hire me. So I'll focus on those areas and connect to people in those areas. And then it's funny because I found out like months later, I got clients from those areas. Why? Because we had connected and they were following my content. So, so that's something else you can do that's a little more strategic in terms of your connections with folks.
Hey, Deb.
Yeah.
Debbie Parker has a question.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Because I can't see everybody all the time. So
There
thanks.
is a free version and a paid version of LinkedIn, and I've just used the free version, but periodically it'll try to draw me into the paid version, and I haven't seen the advantage yet, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on both.
Yeah, I don't use the paid version anymore. I have used it. And like you, I don't really see a major advantage. It's can satisfy some curiosity because you can see who looked at your profile. You can, if you're a bigger company, you can like do more with saving leads and kind of like use it sort of as a database of sorts. But I feel like for the for business owners, like Hera Hub members, it's probably not all that important, but they do usually offer you a free month. So I'm more instead of dictating what people should or shouldn't do, I'm more like, why don't you, people can just test it out, and they let you test it out for free. And then you can see, is it something that you're going to use? I felt like it wasn't something I needed to use. But sometimes I do get persuaded to test it out for free again, just to see, have the features changed? Has my business changed in a way that I now think maybe it could be useful? So those are, it's always good to experiment and see, but I think that you can do just fine without it. So.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah, sure thing. All right. So let's see, where was I? Okay. Yeah. So this is just another, let me make sure I did this one. Yeah. Okay, great. All right. So this is another student who got, these are just some of the results that people had. And I included them here so you can see the range of what can happen thanks to LinkedIn. And just like the range of pricing. I've also used it, like I have some free events. So like I have my monthly storytelling roundtable. I used to have these free content writing challenges and content writing sprints, and I would get lots and lots of people into them, mainly from LinkedIn. So that was great because it increased my community, it increased sales, and it was just good all around. So here's some things. I've got a tool for you. If you're ever stuck for ideas, the 57 content ideas can be really helpful. I have the LinkedIn incubator session, and if you want some help one-on-one, and then I have a free monthly roundtable that's it's geared towards authors of books or people who want to write books. However, we talk about writing a lot, and that applies to content as well. So you're welcome to come to that if it's something that you feel like you could benefit from. It's a growing community is how I view it. So it'd be great to have any of you guys come there. Do you guys have any other questions or anything else that I can help you with? I'm gonna go look up your LinkedIn profiles. And
Deborah, could you,
yeah.
Do you mind adding the links into the chat for those 3 things on your last page?
I don't mind at all. It's a great idea. Let me stop the share so we can see each other better. Okay.
Yeah. So, no, that was really
I guess I
great.
just have one more question, and it's more because I've been to a couple of these, and this was extremely helpful, and I love the way you did break it down because it makes it easy for me to think about some of the things I need to do. I do comment. I don't ask questions. So that's a good thing. I've never done a poll, so I think I want to try that. But I do a fair amount of comment, and when people comment back. But my question is, when people will tell me, oh, you need to post only on Mondays and Wednesdays, like in other words, and you only should post 2 times a week or 3 times. Don't do anything over the weekend. I personally find sometimes that's when my posts are the best, when I'm on the weekend relaxing and just freely thinking, than feeling like, oh my God, today's Monday, I got to post. What am I going to post? So my comment is, do you think that really makes a difference? In terms, okay, all right.
No, I did meet someone who said they post 1 time a month, and I think that that probably won't help, because you have to build up some momentum. But if I say post every day, people freak out. But to your point about the question, sometimes you can just put in a poll.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be something that's really long. You don't have to write a book every time. In fact, it's better to have the variety. And video is something else people are usually resistant to, because they're like, oh, I don't like how I look and I don't know what to say. And then I'm going to say too many times. You know what? Nobody really cares. What you could do if you guys need content for video is to think through, like, what are the top 5 questions people always ask me? How do I train new managers to manage other people? How do I deal with this toxic work culture? It could even be more specific questions in that. And then give people some help with those different kinds of questions. And right there, you have a video series. So, and it can be split up into one. I try to keep them under 90 seconds because people don't really have long attention spans for watching video. Plus, it's easier to caption them when I'm able to caption them. So that'll give you some ideas as well. And you can use that same kind of idea about the questions when creating your own content. So
what I tend to do, and tell me if this is good or bad, what I tend to do is I tend to find really great articles, and I will post the article and comment on it. So I'll comment on it first, so I'll say something about the article, on why I feel it's such a great article that I want to share it. And then I post the article, and the article obviously is always germane to my business, and helping to sell kind of, what I do, but it helps me with the content. And then the other thing I try to do sometimes, which is a little harder, is the telling the stories, because I do have a lot of stories, just because my daughter is a part of why I do what I do. And so I'm able to kind of, from that aspect, share. It just takes more time and energy, when you're, but articles, do you think that that's an okay way to post content?
Yeah, I think it's an okay way. I would kind of look and see, like, do you ever get engagement from people? It's interesting because there's some posts that get featured on LinkedIn when they tie into an article. The LinkedIn editor will pick posts that relate to a hot topic of the week. I haven't really explored that strategy because usually what they're talking about, the economy, war, those kinds of things, they don't really tie into what I do. But if I was an economist or something, I think it would be much more germane to what I do. But for what you're saying, I think sharing can be good, especially if you're feeling stuck one day, but I just wouldn't do it a lot. Like sometimes I'll go to, it's almost like someone's teaching, just share other people's articles, because I'll sometimes go to people's profiles and all it is sharing of articles. Gotcha. And then they haven't even inserted their own thoughts about it. I'm like, okay, so I see this is Harvard Business Review, but why do you think I should read this? Like, they haven't shared what they think about it. And I think that that's what people want to know if they're going to your profile. Like, what's your take? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have more to add? Like, let's have a conversation. Again, going back to the cocktail party, I wouldn't just walk up to you and hand you an article and then walk away. But that's basically what people are doing with their LinkedIn profiles sometimes.
Well, and I will say, in answer to your question, it's no question that when I tell a story or when I talk more personally, or it's, less article, I do get more responses. I get a lot of likes and a lot of notifications and so I will agree that does, get much more reaction. And I will say I'm so excited because I'm not sure what they saw, but I just got a contract with the Chesterfield Chamber of Commerce. So to do training. So, and I know it was from LinkedIn because a gentleman linked me in and said, hey, we're doing this DE&I conference. Do you want to speak? And I'm like, wow, and I just had the meeting yesterday. So something worked. I should have asked, the gentleman, like, what did you see? Just to see what he saw. But so I will say that it does work.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Congratulations.
Yay, Kim, that is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I have another question, if I may.
Yes.
So I had read, I read an ongoing debate about if you write something yourself, you shouldn't post all of it on LinkedIn. You should drive traffic to your website by putting a snippet from it. And then say, if you want to read more, come to my website. Also, the ongoing idea that, you know, if you post your content solely on LinkedIn, it's LinkedIn's basically, they can decide ultimately what they're doing with all of this stuff. What are your thoughts about both of those ideas?
I've been posting it for 7 years and LinkedIn hasn't tried to steal my content yet. I don't think it would be in their interest to do so. And I don't know if their terms of service say that they own the content. I think the creator owns it. And they're pretty focused on promoting like this LinkedIn creator idea. So I think if they did that, it'd be very bad press for them. I'm not really a fan of making people click to my website because it feels like I'm trying to force them to do something. And if they're on their mobile phone, like imagine the person who rolls over and checks LinkedIn right when they get out of bed. There are those people, like we're all trying not to use our phone in the mornings, but we're not all succeeding, right? So there is that person who's in bed, they're scrolling through LinkedIn, they're on their mobile phone, and it's a mobile experience for them. Then they have to click this other button to open up a website that they don't even know if it will be mobile optimized, you know, because a lot of business owners don't have mobile optimized sites. So now they're like too deep in. And like on my phone, it gets really complicated if you click through to somewhere else, because then like to navigate back is kind of a whole thing. And then I have to like get out of the browser and then back into the app. And it's just like all these different steps. So I like to keep things simple. And so for a call to action, I'll just be like, hey, message me. And sometimes I'll say, message me with keyword, like message me with book coach or message me with roundtable if you want the info. I do include links, like for my roundtable, for instance, I do include links to it and people do sign up. There was a time when LinkedIn was deprioritizing posts that had links, but then they seemed to reverse course and actually gave a little bit of extra juice to posts that had links, which really surprised me. So I do a little bit of, I do both because I don't really know what LinkedIn's algorithm is doing and nobody does. So I will sometimes add links and sometimes not, but I can't think of a time I've ever like forced someone to go to my website to get the rest of the content. It's usually like, if you want to sign up, go to my website, you know, but I don't say like to finish the article, go to my website.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anything else?
Come on. Anybody? Lisa, did you have any questions?
Deb, I'm thinking about what you said about, you know, getting as many connections as possible so that the more people, so that you have more people looking at your content. What I do is so niche that mostly I want people who run museums to look at my content. So does it still help to have like a larger network out there looking at what you do? Because I rarely meet someone outside of the museum space who knows a museum related person because it's that small of a community.
I feel like you just never know. Like I know someone who runs a museum because poets are amazing and they do all these amazing things. And now he's running a museum in DC. So you probably would never think I know somebody who runs a museum. But so I feel like we just never know. And that it's worth kind of going outside of our circle a little bit. But you definitely don't have to, you know, if it's something that you feel strongly that isn't likely to happen, then stick with what you're doing. So I also like to connect with people who might know people. To your point, you said it's unlikely someone would know someone who runs a museum. So I hear that because that's very niche. But that's another thing that if you're in a different business where it makes more sense to do that, sometimes you might know people who know people, and there might be a certain profession who knows people in this other certain profession. And so that's something that you could think about, like, how do I connect in with those people?
Yeah, great. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Come on.
I also think like for you, I'm guessing New York and DC would be hotspots for you. in terms
Yeah.
of museums. So I just feel like there might be something there to explore with regards to like who, and DC can kind of be a small place. Like you always know someone who knows someone who knows someone. You can like get to almost anybody, it seems like, through connections. So I don't know, that might be something just to ponder a little bit and see if it makes sense for you to focus on geographic areas like that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Well, definitely for DC. Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably for New York, LA, some of the big cities.
yeah, yeah. And now that I think about it, like, yeah, you know, there's all, yeah, actually, I just thought of another museum person that I knew too. I forgot. But anyway, yeah. So I just feel like, I don't know, you might want to just experiment. I feel like if you went to metropolitan areas, yeah, it could make sense for you.
Yeah, Deb Friedman, did you have a question or anything? I know, and I know you mentioned you might have to go for jump on a call, but I don't know if you
Oh,
have
this has
anything.
been this has been great. I'm super grateful, Deborah, for this. I can't think of any questions right now, but I've written down a ton of notes and I have a lot of work to do to start thinking about. I'm not really a content creator by nature, and I'm not on social media at all other than LinkedIn. But I like LinkedIn a lot. And so now, you know, I think I would like just a process to figure out, like, you know, what's my voice on there? What do I want to be saying? And how do I want to use it to build my business? But I mean, I think my biggest takeaway is just like what you're saying about like how many new people to be connecting with, you know, each day, and how to think about like how much to be commenting. Like that's just so far from like, you know, kind of how I think of LinkedIn use, that it's definitely a shift in mindset. But it's exciting, and it makes a lot of sense to really think about like all the potential to like actively use LinkedIn on a daily basis in that way.
Very cool. Yeah, and to your point, or something you said made me think about this. It doesn't have to be something where like you sit down for 2 hours and like you work on it 2 hours a day, but really like the commenting, it might just be like, I have 5 minutes, you know, a meeting ends at 10 of, and the next one doesn't start until on the hour. So I have 5 minutes and I don't have anything else that I need to do in 10 minutes. So like, I might just go in and kind of comment on 5 posts or something.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take very long. So you can kind of do it throughout your day and just kind of fit it in to the times where maybe there might not be something else happening. And sometimes I like to go in the backyard and just be in my hammock with the birds around, and then I'll go on LinkedIn while I'm out there, and you know, then I can kind of be doing something productive while I'm also enjoying nature. So there just might be other ways that you can fit it into your day that make it a pleasant task. So
I gotta get myself a hammock.
yeah. I know, one of my pandemic purchases, I was like, we need a hammock. Never needed a hammock before, but apparently I did in 2020. So
Deborah, what are your thoughts about accepting invitations to connect from people you don't know? The only rule I have right now is if it clearly looks like somebody who's using me as a vehicle to my network, that they're a salesperson, I usually don't accept. But I've seen different opinions about whether it's a good idea to, and sometimes people don't tell me why they want to connect. They just send me an invitation and I'm not sure what to do about that.
yeah, I never send a note to say why I want to connect with someone. I just feel like all the notes sound alike. Like I want to, like there's that one that's like, I'd like to connect and grow my network. I've received that some version of that message so many times. And then 2 guys from the same company use the same copy and paste message. And then another person called me Gary. So I'm just like, you know, I'd rather you just connect with me and I'll just look at your profile and decide if it seems like it makes sense. So I connect with, I accept most connection requests. The only time I won't is if it's like someone who I suspect is trying to make it look like they live in the US, but then I dig deeper and I see they graduated from schools that aren't here, and then they have no job descriptions, or like there was like a lot of oil and drilling gas people with like pictures that look like they were from Getty Images. They didn't look like real pictures of people. So I'm a little suspicious sometimes of certain kinds of profiles if there's not much on them. If they just look a little bit suspicious, or if it seems like they're trying to say like they're an oil industry baron or something, I'm kind of like, no, block. Yeah, but you know, I've also been surprised on the other end where someone has come my way and then they want to work with me and I'm like, oh, didn't expect that, you know? So I think it's, I think if you have any inkling that they are a real person, I would just accept it. Because if they become a problem, you can always disconnect from them later on.
Okay, because I'm still seeing advice from like the LinkedIn people themselves that are saying it's still intended, their intention is still that you only connect with people you actually have met in some venue, so you don't necessarily worry about that. Is that right?
Not at all. I think it's a wonderful platform for getting to know people internationally and around the world, and I wouldn't want to limit my network. I know, like, I feel like people did have that idea, or I remember a friend told me that. She's like, I'm not connecting with anyone I haven't met in real life. And I was like, but why? Like, it's just it's a made up rule. So maybe we can examine the rule and see, like, how does it serve us? Do we still want to follow that rule? Does it make sense now in 2022 to do that? And for me personally, I don't think it makes sense to restrict myself. So I'm not. I have friends. I made a bunch of friends in the UK. And I have some accountability partners, like one who's in Scotland, one who's in London. And these are people who I met partly through LinkedIn. So I just don't want to limit myself.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, cross-culturally, it's awesome. Like, I found out like how we're so different, how we're the same. And then it's just really interesting just not to be in like this little bubble of whatever here in the DC area, but like to sort of see what other people are hearing and experiencing. So I feel like it's good for me personally and as well as professionally. So anyway, probably a long answer, but that's how I feel.
No, I really wanted to hear your thoughts. So thank you.
Sure thing.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Deborah. It's almost at the top of the hour. And this was such a great session. I know the second time I've seen it because I saw it at the Business Acceleration Expo, and I always learn new stuff. And I still haven't changed my banner. So that's my goal, is to get a new banner. And I did go to Canva, and you can search when you create a design, you can search for format, and you can search for a LinkedIn banner. Just double check and make sure you get the right size, because Kim, a lot of times they'll have like add an image and it'll give you the size, or you can even Google what size should a LinkedIn banner be. And then that way you can pick out the right size. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you, Kim and Julia, do you guys have a couple minutes and I can just show you really quickly how to get to the banner?
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Julia, or do you have something else?
No.
Thanks so
I'm gonna
much.
stop recording and anybody can